Welcome back to the Happy Man Coaching Channel. I'm your Happy Man Coach, Charlie McKeever. And today I want to talk to you about death. It's a happy topic, right? And in fact, it is actually part of life. It's part of the ultimate experience of life. It's a good reminder that life is not permanent, that there is an impermanence to everything, that nobody gets out of here alive, so to speak. And that what's important is that we know who we want to be and how we want to spend our time while we're here. And this morning I was thinking about my grandfather. He died of lung cancer when I was 9 years old. And I've come to understand as an adult, especially doing this work, talking with men, that there is a point in our development early on where we're kind of unconscious, right? We're just kind of in the world. We're not really concerned about what people think or what's going on around us. We see other children and we're just like, hey, you want to play? We have joy, we laugh, we giggle, we run and we jump out of trees, we chase frogs, we're curious about our world. And then about 7 years old, the age of reason comes into. Our brain starts to develop. We start to kind of become more conscious, more awake, more aware. We start to look around and see that there are other people, and we start to say, hey, where do I fit into all of this? And we start to move from a place where we experience pain to a place where we actually start to experience suffering as well, mental suffering. So if you understand the difference between pain and suffering, you'll know that when you fall down as a child, you scrape your knee, the pain receptors send signals to your brain to say, hey, something's happened, something's wrong, we're hurt. And that pain is there until it subsides, until the pain goes away, until the skin stops throbbing and the nerves stop sending those signals to the brain, and we say, oh, okay, yeah, we're hurt, but it's not critical, we're okay. Like, we can keep going. And so we go right back to when, as a child, we go right back to laughing and giggling and playing, right? If you ever watch a child fall down, they cry for a bit, the pain goes away, and then boom, they're right back to joy. And then, suffering, mental suffering comes into play. We start ruminating about things. We start projecting, predicting, protecting. We start getting up in our head about stuff. And this is where our ruminating brain, our monkey mind, our lizard brain, whatever you want to call it, starts to produce suffering in us. We start to be concerned about what other people are thinking, what other people are thinking of us. Judgment comes in, right? This judgment comes in, self-judgment, comparison to others, trying to figure out if we're going to be okay, who we need to be. And we start behaving based on the feelings that we're feeling according to our thoughts, right? So if we think that we're not okay, that we won't be accepted, that we won't be loved, that something will be wrong, that we'll be bad, that we'll make a mistake and people won't love us, then we start having these negative feelings. And then we start behaving in ways to try to make those negative feelings go away. So now we're into mental suffering, and now we're into actually interacting with and affecting our environment. Now, what does this have to do with death? Well, we do that in life until we finally wake up. And then we finally wake up and we start to realize that there are people in the world. And then at some point we start fearing death. We start fearing the end. This can definitely accelerate and magnify in later seasons of life when we're a little closer to our mortality, when we're really starting to look down the barrel of things and say, do I want the next 20 years to be like the last 20 years? I'm running out of time. And so death can become this thing that's really scary. It becomes this final chapter, and we start to have fear, we start to have regret, we start to have this anxiousness that we've messed our life up, that we haven't done it right, that we could have done better, that somehow we didn't make the right choices, that we weren't honest with ourselves, that we didn't own our desires. And especially as a man generally is interested in freedom, freedom from constraint, freedom from tyranny, freedom from being pinned to the ground by somebody else and not allowed to get up. We don't like those things. This is why we push back against these things, and we also push back against ourselves. We push back against our life. We push back against our job. We push back against our relationship. We push back against our friend groups. And we find ourselves being discontent with our life, being unhappy. And it's all because death is getting closer and closer. And we haven't made peace with it. We haven't made peace with that on the other side of this, we won't be sitting around going, that I should have done it differently. I should have done it better. It just will be. And we don't know, nobody ever knows when their last breath will be. But we can have a life that we want now. And then we can embrace death as part of that experience, that to fully live, we have to own our choices. We have to own our desires. We have to own ourselves. We have to take back the burden, the responsibility, ownership of our life, and stop making other people responsible for our happiness, trying to get other people to save us, trying to get other people to give us the things that we feel like we're lacking. If we're always chasing, if we're always pushing happiness and joy and contentedness out into the distance, off onto the horizon, over the next hill, then we're going to spend a life of mental suffering, right? We're not going to experience the joy. We're going to be distracted by all of that. And then we're certainly going to be afraid of dying. We're certainly going to be afraid of never having gotten there, wherever there is, when in fact our life is happening now. And this is why when I talk to men, I ask them questions about what's important to them. What's important to them? Who do they want to be? How do they enjoy spending their time? Where do they want to go? Who do they want to spend their time with? What do they want to experience? Because their life is happening now, and the best time to be present in your life is now. And so getting that clarity for themselves is what allows them to open to possibilities, to be able to open to recognizing that they want to live now. They don't want to wait. They want to live now. And that really starts to change their relationship with death. They start to embrace it. They start to not necessarily look forward to it, but they stop fearing it. They stop being controlled by their fear of it. And it really just puts them in a place where they're now fully alive, where they can fully be in this moment now, focusing on, paying attention to what's important to them. What's important? What's most important? And a lot of times we have to talk about owning their desires. We have to let it be okay for them to want things. In those formative years, 0 to 7, before they came online and kind of woke up and realized that there were other people in the room, there were a lot of operating instructions that were laid down. A lot of disowning of self, a lot of telling themselves that it wasn't okay to be them. And so sometimes it's hard for them to own their desires, because they feel like if they want something, if they desire something, if they have preferences, if they prioritize themselves, then somehow they're doing something wrong. And so they'll limit themselves, they'll keep themselves from even acknowledging their desires, acknowledging their needs, their wants, being able to understand the difference between a need and a want. And they just won't go there, right? But it's not until we start talking to another man and you start saying things and he starts asking questions that this all comes to the surface, and then he can own those things for himself. So this is the unraveling of the hairball that I want to invite you into. Let's have some deep conversations. Let's talk about some things that maybe you've never talked about before, that you never allowed yourself to go there before. Maybe you have turned away from. Maybe you have distracted yourself, avoided, coped, numbed, right? These are all the phrases that kind of point to avoiding discomfort. and not really addressing these important conversations in your life so that you can get the clarity that you want, so that you can experience connection, so that you can experience the presence and beauty and joy of life, that you can free yourself from mental suffering, from being afraid of dying without having fully lived. All right, brother, that's what I want to invite you into today. happymancoaching.com/contact. Fill out that contact form. Tell me a little bit about yourself so I know who I'm talking with. Let's spend some time with each other on the phone. Let's talk about community. Let's talk about retreats. Let's talk about courses. Let's talk about all the different tools that you have available to you for you to transform your own life. I look forward to talking to you. Talk to you soon. Bye.